Chapter 4: Evolution. The origin of life. What is evolution? When we think of evolution, we usually know what we mean, but it can be quite difficult to define. We usually think of the whole course of evolution starting with the origin of life and ending with the current biodiversity. In this course of evolution, there must have been extinction along the way. We think of new species arising and the biodiversity of the planet increasing, and also as evolution has progressed, there has been a general trend towards larger and more complex organisms. What is happening? How did all these millions of new species appear? We need a working definition of evolution which will take into account what is happening. Obviously, change is important when trying to explain evolution. Organisms have changed over time, they have evolved. For new species to appear, groups of organisms or population have to change, not just single organism. The population to be changed, their genes must be changed because the genes define what the population will be by controlling photosynthesis. After having all these basic ideas, let us see the theory of evolution that describe how the various forms of life on Earth, including human being, emerged for the first time and developed or evolved. Evolution is a change in the heritable characteristics of biological population over successive generation due to mutation, sexual reproduction, and natural selection. There are five main theories of the origin of life on Earth. These five main theories of the origin of life on Earth are special creationism, spontaneous generation, the eternity of life theory, cosmos one theory, and biochemical theory. Let us study each theory one by one. Special creationism or religious theory at some stage stated that some supreme being, God or Allah, created life on earth. This theory mainly linked to religion that mainly focuses on spiritual matters that cannot be seen, touched, or measured. This theory deals with philosophical matter that relates to morality or purpose. It mainly concerns between humans and their God. It significantly relies on believing in that which cannot be proven. But scientific theory or evolution describes the natural world around us using a means of empirical observable facts, testable hypotheses. That means it relies or depends on probable events that can be proven through observation and experimentation. There are many different versions of special creationism that linked with different religions. Young Earth creationism, Old Earth creationism, Day Age and Gap creationism, Progressive creationism, theistic evolution or evolutionary creationism, and intelligent design. Young Earth creationism today suggested that the Earth is only a few thousand years old. Young Earth creationists often believe that the Earth was created in 6 24-hour days, while they agree that the Earth is round and moves around the Sun. They interpret all geology in the light of Noah's flood. There are several types of creationism that are considered old Earth. They vary in different aspects of how they explain the age of the earth while still holding the story found in Genesis. Those who believe in old earth creationism accept the evidence that the earth is very old but still maintain that all life was created by God. The age and gap creationism. These are similar in that each interprets the beginning of the creation story as actually having taken much longer than 6 Earth days. Gap creationism discusses a large gap between the formation of the Earth and the creation of all the animals and humans. The gap could be millions or billions of years. This gets around the scientific evidence that the Earth is several billion years old without having to believe in the process of evolution itself. The age creationism is similar in the length of time but talks about each of the 6 days as really meaning a billion years or so of geological time. That means the days are just symbolic. Progressive creationism just accepts the Big Bang theory as the origin of the universe. We know the idea of Big Bang theory that states the universe started out from very small things and expanded continuously. Progressive creationism accepts the fossil record of a series of creations for all of the organisms catalogued. It does not accept this as part of a continuing process. That means each, each species is seen as a unique creation. The modern species are not seen as being genetically related to the ancient ones. Theistic evolution or evolutionary creationism maintains that God invented evolution and takes some form of an active part in the ongoing process of evolution. It also invokes or refers to the role of God in areas not discussed by science, like the creation of the human soul. Theistic evolution is promoted by the Pope for Catholic Church and is also espoused by most mainline Protestants. When we come to intelligent design, this is the newest version of creationism and maintains that God's handiwork can be seen in all of creation if one knows where to look. Advocates of intelligent design offer sophisticated arguments often based on cell biology and mathematics to give impression of complex scientific arguments and to create equal stature with mainstream scientific thought. These arguments attack different parts of evolutionary theory with the idea that if one part of evolutionary theory can be found to be incorrect, then it follows that all of the evolution must be incorrect. The term intelligent design is used to mask the fact that it is a form of creationism cloaked in scientific sounding ideas. Spontaneous generation is a theory of the origin of life on Earth that suggests life can evolve spontaneously from non-living objects. The two scientists, Francisco Redi and Louis Pasteur, disproved this idea that macroorganisms and microorganisms can only arise from pre-existing organisms or pre-existing cells. Here we can see the experimental process that Francisco Redi and Louis Pasteur tried to disprove the idea of spontaneous generation. Francisco Redi, in his experiment, he formed two groups, experimental group and control group. In his experimental group, flies only appeared in the jars where flies had access in the first place because the jar was opened. In his control group, he excluded the flies as he did with some jars, and the meat does not produce either maggots or flies. In this case, the jar was closed. Louis Pasteur, in his experimental group, showed that broth or wine only went sour if microorganisms were allowed to enter. In his control group, no microorganisms appeared in the broth unless they were allowed to enter from the outside. He concluded that microorganisms were not formed from the broth itself unless they get inside into the flask. These two scientists showed that both microorganisms and macroorganisms arise from pre-existing cells. They disproved the idea of spontaneous generation, but they didn't answer the question, where did the first ever cell or pre-existing cell come from? What about the first ever cell or pre-existing cell? Unless we believe that life is eternal with no beginning and no end in the universe, there had to be a first cell. It could not have come from pre-existing cell because it was the first. Scientists or spontaneous generationists have proposed a method whereby the necessary components of life could be formed, and they believed that somehow these necessary components managed to assemble themselves into a primitive cell. Eternity of life theory. How does the eternity of life theory seek to explain life on Earth? Eternity of life theory claims that the universe has always existed and there has always been life in the universe. Universe is in steady state or unchanging. No beginning and no end to life on earth. That means life neither needs special creation nor gets generated from non-living matter. Eternalists believe that life is an inherent property of the universe. It has always existed as the universe does. At the time when such theories were being propounded, many eminent scientists, including Albert Einstein, believed that the universe was unchanging. They reasoned that if life is found today in unchanging universe, then it must always have been there. Cosmos One theory. How does Cosmos One theory seek to explain life on Earth? Cosmos One theory claims that life on Earth originally came from elsewhere in the universe, possibly from other planets. This theory relies on eternity of life theory. That means cosmos believed that life has always existed in the universe but not on Earth, and propagating itself from one place to Earth or another parts of the universe by means of cosmoswa or germs of cosmos. Richter in 1865 and Arrhenius in 1908 stated that life reached to Earth from other cosmological structures by means of meteorites or comets in the form of highly resistant bacterial spores. In 1908, Arrhenius put forward a new version of the Cosmos One theory, what is called panspermia, which stated bacterial spores were propelled through the interplanetary space by radiation pressure. That means life could be transported between planets. However, Arrhenius' theory was dropped by most great scientists when it became apparent that bacterial spores would inevitably be destroyed by UV radiation, X radiation, zone of charged particles. However, another version of Cosmos One theory or panspermia does have some evidence to support it. This version is called weak panspermia or pseudo-panspermia. This theory stated that organic compounds arrived from outer space and added to the chemicals on Earth that gave rise to the first life through abiogenesis. This theory assumed that transport was by means of meteorites or comets. However, very high temperatures that meteorites create on entering to the Earth's atmosphere seemed to rule this out. Biochemical theory. How does biochemical theory seek to explain life on Earth? The current ideas we have about how life may have evolved on Earth as a result of biochemical reactions, sometimes called abiogenesis, owe much to biologists working early in the 20th century. Aleksandr Oparin, a Russian biologist who first put forward his ideas in 1924, and John Haldane, an English biologist, independently put forward almost identical ideas in 1929 before Oparin's book had been translated into English. Biochemical theory seeks to explain life on Earth originated as a result of a number of biochemical reactions producing organic molecules which associated to form cells. Oparin and Haldane suggested that the primitive atmosphere of the Earth was a reducing atmosphere with no free oxygen, as opposed to the oxygen-rich atmosphere of nowadays. They also suggested that there was an appropriate supply of energy, such as lightning and ultraviolet light. This would provide energy for reactions that would synthesize a wide range of organic compounds like amino acids, sugars, and fatty acids that could then produce quasarvates and hence the first true cells or primitive cells. Oparin personally suggested that the simple organic compounds could have undergone a series of reactions leading to the formation of more complex molecules. The molecules might have formed colloidal aggregates or quasarvates in an aqueous environment. The quasarvates were able to absorb and assimilate more organic compounds from the environment in the way similar to metabolism of cells. Quasarvates were the precursors of cells and would be subject to natural selection or environmental factors that eventually leading them to the first true cells. Haldane similarly proposed the following ideas or hypotheses. This was the primitive sea served as a vast chemical laboratory powered by solar energy. As a result of all the reactions powered by solar energy, the sea became a hot dilute soap, Haldane called prebiotic soap of organic monomers and smaller polymers that were produced through a series of reactions. This term came to symbolize the Oparin-Haldane view of the origin of life on Earth. Stanley Miller in 1953 conducted his now famous spark discharge experiment by passing electric sparks repeatedly through a mixture of gases that were thought to represent the primitive atmosphere of the Earth. As we can see from the equipment, it was designed to simulate the primitive atmosphere of Haldane and Oparin as source of energy to empower chemical reactions. Instead of lightning and UV radiation, Milner used electric sparks. He also used methane, ammonia, carbon dioxide, water, and hydrogen primitive reduced atmosphere. When Milner analyzed the liquid in the water trap, he found a number of simple organic molecules like hydrogen cyanide and a large variety of more complex organic molecules, including amino acids, pentose sugar, hexose sugar, and hydrogen cyanide. This is then considerable evidence to support Oparin-Haldane hypothesis, but it has its own problem or drawback. It do not answer why are only left-handed amino acids found in living things when both left-handed and right-handed types are possible. Although nitrogenous bases can be synthesized in the laboratory, purines are not synthesized under the same conditions as pyrimidines. This is quite a serious problem for the theory. Miller was unable to demonstrate the next significant steps of polymerization of these monomers. How did autotrophs evolve on Earth? In the last moment, we did say that through abiogenesis, substances seriously react with each other and produce organic molecules. These organic molecules, through a series of reactions, produced quasarbates and then primitive cells. These primitive cells gradually evolved to prokaryotes. That was the first organism appear about 4 billion years ago. These prokaryotic cells had no true nucleus. It seems likely that they had RNA rather than DNA as their genetic material. Most scientists believed that they gave rise to three distinct lines of evolution leading to archaebacteria, eubacteria, and eukaryotes. Archaebacteria are prokaryotes that include thermophile sulfobacteria, methanol bacteria, and halophilic bacteria. Eubacteria are the second lines of prokaryotic cells that include ordinary bacteria and cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria, sometimes called blue-green bacteria or blue-green algae. The third line of evolution is eukaryotes. These eukaryotes eventually evolving into protista, fungi, plants, and animalia. Nearly all are aerobic. Photoautotrophs evolved from heterotrophic bacteria by developing photosynthetic parts for photosynthesis. The earliest photosynthetic bacteria used hydrogen sulfide. Then, due to scarcity of hydrogen sulfide, some photosynthetic bacteria gradually evolved to use water in photosynthesis that lead to cyanobacteria. There is one great change that affected the evolution of early life forms was the shift from reducing atmosphere to oxidized atmosphere or atmosphere containing oxygen. This took place about 2.4 billion years ago. Where did this oxygen come from? There is only one process we know of that can have produced it, what we call photosynthesis. The fossil record shows that cyanobacteria had been producing oxygen by photosynthesis from about 3.5 billion years ago. Since cyanobacteria are photoautotrophic organisms, they use light as source of energy and carbon dioxide as source of carbon for photosynthesis. But for almost 1 billion years, the levels of oxygen in the atmosphere did not rise. This is because the oxygen was absorbed by the vast amount of iron in the earth for rusting. But by 2.4 billion years ago, the concentration began to rise and the rate of increase accelerated from 2.1 billion years ago. Cyanobacteria are among the earliest of autotrophs that use photosynthetic chemical phycocyanin, which gives them their blue-green appearance to capture light energy. Other primitive autotrophs, what we call chemoautotrophs, used chemical reactions from inorganic chemicals as source of energy to synthesize all the necessary organic compounds, starting from carbon dioxide. Most of the chemoautotrophs are bacteria or archaea that live in hostile environments, such as deep sea vents, which are the primary producers in ecosystems on the sea beds. So in this case, scientists believe that Some of the first organisms to inhabit on Earth were chemoautotrophs. The primitive sulfobacteria use hydrogen sulfide as the energy source. Bacteria are the only life forms found in rocks for a long time. That's about 3.5 to 2.1 billion years ago. Eukaryotes became numerous about 1.9 to 2.1 billion years ago. Fungi-like organisms appeared about 0.9 billion years ago. The oxygen produced by photoautotrophs had made it possible for aerobic respiration to evolve as an energy-releasing pathway. Due to this reason, more active organisms could now evolve, like animals perhaps evolved 600 to 700 million years ago. This process releases far more energy